We are live. What is up, guys? Mike Mutzel with HighIntensityHealth.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry for those of you that have been waiting for a little bit. I had to reschedule this due to some scheduling conflicts. So I'm here. It's a day after Halloween, and in this video, we're going to talk all about fat adaptation. What is fat adaptation? What does it mean? How do you know if you're fat adapted or not? So what do you think about the mullet? This is the day after Halloween, and I thought it would be apropos, it would be timely to talk about this kind of utopian-like state that a lot of people are chasing called fat adaptation. Because why? A lot of folks, including yourself, maybe, hopefully not, but maybe you had a lot of sugar, candy and treats and alcohol, things like that on Halloween, celebrating, having fun with your family and community members in your neighborhood, and you had some candy. You might notice today you even have more preferences for sugar-enriched foods, processed foods, things like that. So this happens. The more that we do in our body, the more dietary fat, the more exercise, the more that we're going to crave that. The more sugars and processed food that we eat, incidentally, the more that we crave that. And so the body is really unique at adapting to different things. So anyhow, I'll take the mullet off. Let me know what you were... What did you dress up as for Halloween? This is the first Halloween in many years that I dressed up. So I was a farmer. So I got the mullet going. I had this vest and a few other things, and we had a good time. So fat adaptation, what does it mean? What do you think it means? I would love, if you're watching this right now, type in the comment bar, this is what I believe fat adaptation is, or this is what I believe fat adaptation isn't, and where you're from. I would love to connect with you. So let me just check and make sure that we're on, there's no issues. And things like that. Refreshing. All right, got quite a few here. Thanks for being here, guys. This is amazing. Okay, so we got quite a few on. So people are typing in. Love it. I don't know how I feel about the hair. My hair. I got to get my hair cut anyway too. But the mullet was a little funky. Love the mullet. Yeah, not that hair. I was a cat woman. Meow. Cool. All right, so what on earth is this utopian state called fat adaptation? And I think the best way to kind of talk about what something is to talk about its opposite. So what is the opposite? How's the audio, by the way, guys? Am I peaking? Is it too hot? I can turn it down. Let me know. Okay, so what is the opposite of fat adaptation? Well, so the signs and symptoms of being fat maladapted or not fat adapted would be, here's a few biomarkers: elevated levels of blood triglycerides, elevated levels of blood cholesterol. So these biomarkers are going to increase when the body doesn't really have the proper capacities to burn fat as fuel. And so what's going on as individuals become more and more insulin resistant. Now, there is inflammatory context in which these biomarkers would be elevated, but if we think about the classic scenario, where individuals are carbon sensitive, carbon tolerant, insulin resistant. So there's a lot of carbohydrates from the diet being converted to fat, and then that's being stored throughout the body. We've talked about this many times on podcasts, on this YouTube channel. We know this to be called ectopic lipid deposition. So this is what, if we think about fatty liver, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, or the deposition of free fatty acids, triglycerides within the hepatocytes or the liver cells, which causes fatty acid deposition and build up within the liver, and the liver to be dysfunctional, which is bad. And if you look at the historical increase in the present day rise in the need for liver transplants, a good friend of mine, Dr. Ben Lynch, and I talked about this on a podcast 2 years ago, or a year ago at this time, all about this. It's a big deal. So the body becomes insulin resistant, carbon tolerant. It starts converting sugar to fat. That fat gets stored everywhere, in the pancreatic beta cells, within the heart muscle, within the muscle tissue itself. And so that then creates this cascade of metabolic aberrations that is not good. Okay, so that's one sign and symptom of being fat maladapted: elevated triglycerides, elevated cholesterol. The other sign that you're kind of fat maladapted would be the liver enzymes would be increased as well. So those are biomarkers. Some other more common signs and symptoms that you're not quite fat adapted is that you can't exercise on an empty stomach without feeling jittery and shaky and things like that. Okay, so why would that happen? Well, most people that have been keto or low carb or even paleo for a number of years, as many of us have before we got into the whole keto thing. I'm sure you're in the same boat, maybe not. But when you're in this state and you're not having big peaks and troughs and so forth in your blood sugar fluctuation, once you deplete your glycogen through fasted exercise, you start to dip into, beta oxidation and breaking down fats. Obviously, we all have fat, on the back of our back, on our triceps, on our stomach. We have a lot of fat. We can go for many days without food and be fine. So when you exercise fasted, you're going to deplete your glycogen within 30 minutes. It depends on the intensity of the exercise. And so then after that, then obviously to fuel that activity, you're going to need to oxidize free fatty acids and stored lipids within the adipocytes, right? So if you are intolerant to fasted exercise, that would be a very easy sign and symptom that you're not fat adapted. Now, there's other caveats and things like that, right? If the exercise is very, very intense and you're drawing upon glycolytic pathways, short duration, high intensity bursts and CrossFit, and you're keto adapted and you are fat adapted, that can cause, different scenarios where your blood sugar might drop and so forth. But, if you can't go on a leisurely, walk or a hike or a leisurely bike ride without feeling shaky and jittery and stuff like that, that would be a big sign that you're not quite fat adapted yet, okay? Because if you were, you would be, even though your blood sugar was low and you depleted your glycogen from that vigorous walk or that hike or something along those lines, your blood energy would increase due to the formation of ketones and burning, oxidizing fatty acids from stored fat, to fuel that activity. So intolerant to exercise fasted, inability to go for a long duration without food. So basically the inability to fast, that is a very common sign and symptom that you're not quite fat adapted. Because if you were, there would be no problem. In fact, getting through the first 12 to 18 hours of a fast, or even just time restricted feeding for that matter, part of that, it's just that mental challenge, that food addiction and the habits that we have through wanting to eat food or feeling like we need to have food at this certain time because we always eat at this time and so forth. A lot of that is mental, the mental game associated with fasting. It's actually quite easy, once you get beyond the 24 hours to just not eat because ketones are high, your brain is feeling good and not as cloudy and foggy and things along those lines. And your liver's cranking out these acetoacetate, beta-hydroxybutyrate, you're burning more fat for fuel, and so forth. So even exercising kind of in a fasted state after 24 hours, I find is a lot easier than like exercising just after maybe an 8-hour fast or a 12-hour fast, right? Because maybe the ketones are not quite as high yet. So first sign and symptom, we talked about the biomarkers, elevated triglycerides, liver enzymes, cholesterol, obviously hemoglobin A1C and blood glucose elevations would be a big sign. If those are elevated, you're not quite fat adapted. The second sign that's common, if you're unable to exercise fasted, that would be a very, common sign and symptom that you're not quite fat adapted yet. The third one would be inability to go without food for an extended period of time. So just, I have friends, and I'm sure you do too, and family that are not into the keto thing. And when you tell them that, you're not going to have dinner tonight because, you already had lunch or something like that, or it wasn't a very active day and you just weren't hungry. And they look at you like, oh my gosh, how could you not have dinner? Like that's astounding. Are you okay? Are you, anorexic? Do you have an eating disorder? But, once we become more in tune with our body and intuitive, this thing is right in my face. And we get, more in sync, with our health and things like that. Oh my goodness. We're having problems, guys. So once we become more fat adapted and in tune and healthy and so forth. Hopefully the audio is better now. Sorry for that. It's a one-man band here today, and so these kind of things happen. We can go for an extended period of time without needing food and actually feel okay, feel good. And that's the goal. So the goal of becoming quote unquote fat adapted is that you can give or take food based upon your activity level. On days that you're very active, it doesn't make sense to fast all day. It makes sense to give your body the fuel that it may need. But on rest days you're not very active, or days you're just doing like yard work and leisurely, cardio and stuff like that, you don't need to eat a whole bunch of food, so we can rely upon breaking down, some of the stored lipids within our fat tissue and so forth, converting those into ketones or free fatty acids and utilizing our fuel that way. So I wanted to address those three things to help you better understand this. I get this question a lot. And also I want to thank my friend Dr. Ben Lynch for inspiring me to make a video like this, because he was like, Mike, do you have any fat adapted videos? And I was like, well, I do. Dr. Kate Shanahan and I about a year ago talked about fat adaptation in athletes. And but I hadn't done a video like this. So let me check and see if you guys have any questions here. All right. Oh my gosh, we got a ton of questions. Thanks for that, guys. I'm drinking some tea here. My evening tea. You might want to know what's in it, or maybe you don't. But it's maca root, and then I put German chamomile and lavender. So we have two different French presses. One is like for evening tea, so we're not cross-contaminating caffeinated beverages with non-caffeinated beverages. But I find that the chamomile, maca, lavender, steeping it in a French press for about 5 minutes, pouring it into a tea in the evening is awesome. And I don't know about you guys, but with the change of seasons and the weather changing and everything like that, it does help to have some sort of calming teas at night, because it gets dark so early, and our circadian rhythms are trying to adapt to the change in season, which is key. And actually, that brings me to another aspect of this fat adaptation. People that are not the best sleepers are going to be generally, and people that go to bed at different times and wake up at different times. We call this in the circadian rhythm world fat maladapted. I'm sorry, fat. We call this social jet lag. I don't know, that just came out of nowhere. I've actually been fasting for the majority of today. I just had half an avocado about 30 minutes ago. Anyway, so if you go to bed at different times and wake up at different times, and you're traveling in different time zones and so forth, so you're going to have this social jet lag, and that's actually going to interfere with your body's circadian rhythms, which will affect your blood sugar and your fat adaptation. So that's a key point. So the other kind of sign and lifestyle factor that you may not be fat adapted quite yet is if you're not going to bed and rising at the same time every day. Maybe you're a shift worker. Maybe sometimes, you travel to different time zones like I do, and I know firsthand this totally screws everything up. So that's why when I travel, I take things like melatonin. Incidentally, supplemental melatonin really helps the liver oxidize fatty acids for fuel. So it's been utilized, and we can't, we're not treating any conditions here. We're just making recommendations, not curing or preventing any diseases. But melatonin has some published research when it comes to affecting fatty liver. So know about that. It's not just for sleep. There's some metabolic properties to melatonin. So I personally take a ton of melatonin, sometimes up to 15 milligrams a day. I know that's a lot for some people. But my circadian rhythms lately, unfortunately, I've been traveling a lot to Canada, Toronto, all over the place. We're in the UK in May, as you know, interviewing for this channel, for you guys, and my circadian rhythm got jacked, and I'm still working on it. So anyway, melatonin's great. But circadian rhythm malalignment is incongruent with keto adaptation and fat adaptation. So keep that in mind. It's not just your diet and your exercise and time-restricted feeding. Food is an important element to entrain our body's biological rhythms, but also sleep is a huge, powerful entrainer of that, as is natural sunlight. So I am just going on and on here. We got a lot of questions here. Thanks for the live questions. If you're watching the replay and you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm going through here. We've got a bunch of questions here. So I know some of you guys watch this and you're like, what is he doing looking at his phone? I just wanted to explain that to you. Okay. Spy21 says, love the act on keto that your hunger goes away. I can't tell if that's sarcastic or not, but yeah, I mean, that is one attribute of ketones. And so this is both good and bad, I would say. It's bad if you're trying to build muscle. I've noticed that the longer that I've been keto, the skinnier I look, unless I really try and force food down. So over the summer, I was like, man, I'm starting to look kind of skinny. So I was really trying to throw in another feeding window, expand the feeding window, have more food, and it's hard. It's why I vibe with people that are like, oh, you can't build muscle on keto. It's not that the metabolic milieu is not favorable to building muscle. It's that, you're just not hungry. And it takes a lot of metabolic energy and digestive capacity to break down all these fats that we're eating. If you're eating 150 grams or more of fat a day, I mean, that's a lot. It takes time and so forth too. So, interesting stuff. So dairy cream can increase blood sugar. Priscilla, I love that. Yeah. About a year ago, I did a video. If you just type in holiday tips, about how dairy can spike insulin and so forth. So just keep that in mind. Not that dairy is bad in all contexts, but I will add that I have been following the research from the American Association for Cancer Research, AACR. And I'll never forget this talk back in 2008 when I went to their first meeting that I had been to in Denver, Colorado. It was Walter Willett was up there talking. He's at Harvard School of Public Health. He does a lot of epidemiological studies and looking at, lifestyle trends and trying to, ascertain whether or not they increase or decrease your risk for a certain condition. And one of the things he talked about is dietary carcinogens, and so we hear a lot about like charred boiled meat. Does charred boiled meat cause cancer? One of them was dairy, and another one was red meat. And so, they looked at, many different studies. It was a study of studies, so a meta-analysis, systematic review, I believe. And long story short, dairy consumption, out of all the data they looked at, is positively correlated with cancer. Does it cause cancer? Probably not directly, maybe, but if your lifestyle is not on point, you're not getting enough sleep, your circadian rhythms are off, dairy can be just another potential risk factor. So anyone that it loves their dairy, I do let them, you need to know about that. So, hey, from Germany, thanks for being here. From Germany, David says, I find it easy to have 3 1,000 calorie meals per day, even with intermittent fasting. David, love that tip. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Really, really good tip. I think I'm getting a little dark here. Let me crank up the old ISO. All right, how's that? It should be a little bit better. It's getting dark by my window here, but hey, Nick says, what kind of camera are you using? It's funny that you asked that because I'm actually doing some course content on how to make YouTube videos. So, Nick, if you're interested in learning how to make videos like this, stream videos from high definition cameras and stuff like that, definitely join our insider member area, and you're going to learn a little bit more about that. So I realize, I love talking about all this health stuff with all of you, but I realize that so many of you probably have a unique gift and passion and thing that you want to share with the world. So if I helped you figure out how to, make good content, how to kind of make better videos, that would help a lot of people. So I'm working on that. If you're interested, if you're watching the replay, type in a comment. I'll let you know a little bit more about that training. So Nick, to let you know, I'm using a Canon C100 Mark II with a Sigma Art lens. But it's not about your camera. You can have a piece of crap camera. It's about your content, if you want to make good videos. All right, Joseph says, I've been keto for 11 months and putting on muscle like crazy. Love that. Yeah, so I think, am I in focus anymore? Hopefully I am. So it's not that it's hard to put on muscle on a ketogenic diet, but this is Nezzy right here. But if your body type is such that you're kind of an ectomorph and it's hard for you to put on muscle anyway, you may not be getting enough calories. So I think that's kind of the hard thing. And I say you may not be getting enough calories because, it's hard to on a ketogenic diet because you're just not hungry. I don't know. Everyone is so different. That's the thing. So I think for hypertrophy, for people that tend to err on the side of like putting on more fat too, than meaning that they gain muscle very easily, but they also gain fat very easily. So that type of person would really benefit from the ketogenic diet because they don't have to worry about their weight, fluctuating too much and gaining too much fat. Now, a kind of a leaner person, naturally skinny person, like if I didn't work out, I'd be rail thin. It's harder for me to maintain and build muscle on a ketogenic diet. I have to really force food down. So anyway, Internet RN says, technically even black coffee breaks a fast. Okay, Internet RN, please explain yourself. I agree with you, but I don't see how black coffee, because there's really no carbohydrates to my knowledge in coffee, maybe like less than 1 gram. And, I think when it comes to breaking the fast, I would agree with you. Anything that bears a macronutrient is going to affect, technically it's not fasting, right? But coffee, I don't believe has any macronutrients. So please explain yourself. I love where the thinking is going, but I want to hear a little bit more. Priscilla says sunglasses. Okay, so Caitlin Fahili says, why is cream in my coffee so bad? Is it just because it breaks your fast, or should we stay away from dairy? Period. Yeah, well, it depends. Caitlin, are you at your ideal body composition? Is your blood sugar in check? do you have any underlying health issues? If not, and you enjoy the little bit of cream in your coffee, then forget about it. Just do it. What we found, and we encourage a lot of our insider members, if you go to highintensityhealth.com/insider, you can sign up for that. We do coaching, we give you recipe ebooks and much more. Again, that's highintensityhealth.com/insider. We teach you how to make nut milks, raw nut milks of a myriad of different flavors and types and different types of milk, meaning from coconut or, versus cashew, pecan, macadamia, all that good stuff. Brazil is my favorite, Brazil nut milk. Anyway, that can be utilized in your coffee, just a small amount. So you don't have to worry about the insulinogenic effect of, because there's no dairy in there. Nuts don't really spike insulin. So that's an option for you. Let's see here. Fast feeding, Mike Tyson says, I fast pretty much every day. I do one meal a day, except during my period. Everyone outside of my low and zero carb community thinks it's crazy. I know, Robin. Isn't that funny? I don't know why that's the case. All right, I'm getting really dark here. I might need to lighten my face up with the phone. I apologize for putting the phone here. It's really, really getting dark. How about using organic heavy cream in coffee? Yeah, you can do that. I mean, if you want, but it doesn't matter if it's organic or Safeway bought cream. It's still cream. It's still dairy spikes insulin. It's insulinogenic. If you don't believe me, go read the research by Lauren Cordain. We had him on the podcast. Go to highintensityhealth.com. Just type in the search bar Lauren Cordain. It will pull up the episode, and we talk all about this. He's done a lot of research when it comes to dairy. All right. So Internet RN says, was listening to Dr. Rhonda Patrick yesterday, and she says any food that causes a response from the liver breaks a fast. Internet RN, I'm quickly thinking, I'm going to call BS on that. I would say, yeah, any food that causes a spike in blood sugar, any food that causes a release in maybe gut hormones potentially could affect some of the pathways involved in fasting. But coffee is actually very ketogenic. So I think in and of itself, I don't think that coffee necessarily by itself is going to break a fast. Now, if you're putting MCT oil and butter and ghee and cream, okay, that's not fasting. That's having a 300-400 calorie meal. So I think I would make sure that if we think about what fasting is, it's going without macronutrients or calories, and coffee doesn't yield calories. So I would say coffee's okay. Now, if we got to look at the other issue. Why does someone have to have coffee? I personally just love the taste of coffee. It's great in the morning, and it's good for having a bowel movement, a BM. One of the downsides that I found with keto is it does affect your bowel movements, which it can be a problem for some people. And I think for detoxification, eliminating fecal matter is how we detox. One of the many ways that we detox. And if you're not having a bowel movement if your bowel movements become more irregular on keto, that's not a good thing. So that's one thing. Hey, Nezzy, you want to say hi? Mm-hmm. This is Inez. How was trick-or-treating?
Good.
Yeah. See, we're trying to, so look into there. You can talk. Mm-hmm. See, we'll see if people are saying anything. Okay, Internet RN, of course not just black coffee. Okay, no, I think Internet RN, I think you're right on point. I'm not saying that Rhonda's right or wrong. I admire her work as well. So I think that's probably fine. But yeah, having cream and butter and all that in a coffee is not fasting. Okay, lot of cool stuff here coming on, guys. Cream started up, dude. Mike, yeah, here you milk is good in fat content. Yeah, you know what? Milk fat, probably not the best source of dietary fat. In fact, one thing that we stress to a lot of our members that are new to this, and maybe you're new to keto and you want to learn more about this, plant-based fats are the way to go. A lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals, dioxins, heavy metals, things like that actually get concentrated in animal fat, and then that gets passed on through the milk. So having milk fat is a great way to increase your body burden of insulin desensitizing compounds and hormone disrupting compounds. So I'm not a vegan. I'm just telling you what the reality of the situation is. Even human breast milk is enriched in these compounds, and that's why there is some controversy about should people even breastfeed. And of course, I'm a huge believer in breastfeeding, but I think we should detox before we get pregnant so that when we're breastfeeding, we're not, giving this very vulnerable, baby toxins and things like that that can affect their cognition. Okay. Healthy coach, according to Dr. Gundry, blah, blah, blah. Hey, it's, hey, from St. George, Utah. Is hydrogenated lard something that trans fats like, yeah, lard, very, very small amounts. Okay. But yeah, it is more of a liquid type fat, and that's going to cause translocation of gram-negative bacterial fragments called endotoxins, as you alluded to, which can cause insulin resistance, leptin resistance, and much more. So keep that in mind. All right, I'm like getting out of focus here. It's getting a little bit dark, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Thanks for being here. Thanks for commenting. Now, if you want more information, you want some of our guides, access to videos, and coaching, hop on over to highintensityhealth.com/insider. That's highintensityhealth.com/insider, where you can learn all the behind the scenes stuff, get early access to footage, early access to videos that we make, and tips, recipes, ebooks, all that good stuff, and then access to our live coaching calls. Our first one is coming up next Monday. So join the Insider program, learn more about that, improve your health, improve the health of your microbiome, and all that. So I'm going to sign off here. I'm like totally out of focus because the camera doesn't know who's who at this point. So have an awesome day, guys. We'll catch up with you soon.